Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Serge. So welcome to another episode of Search for the Truth. Today, I'm really excited to have my guest, Mr. Bart Kay. So good afternoon to you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. And today we're going to talk about a few things. But first of all, let's tell us about you. So why you are passionate about nutrition and what you're doing and what's your purpose.
Right. Well, I've been up until 2018. I was heavily involved in academia. I was teaching all aspects of human physiology, human anatomy, human nutrition, cardiovascular pathophysiology, statistics, research methods. Pretty much, jack of all trades in that kind of area in terms of how does the human body work. How should it be fueled, exercise physiology, all of that kind of stuff. And I had a 25-year career in academia, as I say, up until 2018, when I decided enough was enough of that and I wanted to do my own thing. And so since then, I've been running a YouTube channel, which is called Bart Kay Nutrition Science Watchdog. And what I do there is basically debunk people that want to come online and say all sorts of things that are not scientifically indicated or don't have a lot of veracity or aren't correct or are bad information, in my humble opinion. And, taking on that sort of side of things in a reasonably combative sort of a way, actually, Serge. Just that's just the style I chose to adopt. I did it thinking I would get clicks that way, and it seems to have worked quite well. More recently, I've set up a second channel about human nutrition, which is called the Institute for Scientific Integrity. And on that channel, it's all professorial, suit and tie, no swearing at people, so that I'm kind of covering the bases that way. So that's kind of my background, a long career in academia, a number of peer-reviewed publications, book chapters, being a peer reviewer myself, external consultancies, all the stuff that you normally do.
Yeah.
And then had a guts full of that and thought I'm going to go and be a YouTube influencer. So there you go.
And there you are. I mean, listen, I've known you for years and you have a really strong foundation and understanding of how the human body works and the nutrition as well. So that's why I'm really excited to get your input today about a few things, because as you know, there's so much confusion on that. It's unbelievable. People are confused. They don't know what to do anymore to be and stay healthy. And one of the major, if not the major confusion that I see a lot is about diet, right? We have extreme like veganisms and have the other extremes, more like carnivore, animal, meat-based. I'm a big fan of carnivore diet, paleo diet, that kind of diet, which is based mostly on animal and fat proteins. So I would like to get your input today on carnivore diet. Because it's really popular, and now there's a lot of my patients actually ask me, is that something healthy to do? Is that something we need to look for or look into? And my answer is yes, but I would like to get your input. But before we do that, I would like to show my listeners a chart, which you may have seen. It's the chart that compares the human body anatomy to carnivores and herbivores. So when we look at these different features of the human body and compared to the animals, we can clearly see that we should not eat, or our diet should not be based on vegetables and fruits only. We are meant to eat animal products, animal fats, animal proteins. So what is your take on this big confusion on that?
Right. Okay. So veganism, the idea that human beings are herbivorous or indeed frugivorous, even worse, is absolute errant nonsense from start to finish. The only bits of support that the people that support that ideology can come up with are reductionist They are things like teeth, though. We don't have sharp, pointy teeth like this. And other such high level arguments like that. Having studied human nutrition and human physiology for over a quarter of a century, the things that strike me as being important in this debate, if you like, for me, this debate is oversearched. There is no debate to be had. The science is actually clear on this.
I agree with you.
So what we do is we go to a couple of things. The first thing I go to, because it's an absolute slam dunk, this by itself will finish this argument. There is a test now being done by a number of scientists called a nitrogen-14, nitrogen-15 isotope test.
Yes.
Where what they do is they take the collagen, which remains in the skeletal remains of human beings that have been discovered and exposed, dug up all around the world, of all different ages, up to and including human skeletal remains as old as 350,000 years. And they get the collagen out of those bones, which still remains there, and they test the isotope levels, the 14 and the 15 version of nitrogen, which is a stable isotope. And what that tells the researchers is how much meat that human being ate when it was alive, as compared to how much plant material that human ate. It works for all sorts of animals, not just humans, of course, but humans are the relevant species that we're talking about here. Anyway, the answer to all of that is this. For 350,000 years, human beings have eaten almost nothing but the flesh and fat of animals. We ate almost no plant material at all. It's only the last 20,000 years that humans have added any amount of plants into their diet at all, and it's been disastrous for our health, because we have 350,000 years as human beings, and actually it turns out about 3.5 million years prior to that, and immediately pre-human species, those species all consumed meat and fat, and more meat and fat, and no plants. So those are the genes that are selected for.
Yeah.
So those are the organ systems we have. For example, we have a very acidic stomach. Herbivores do not have that.
Yeah.
We have no effective cecum. It's called the appendix these days, and it's about that big. It's a vestigial organ. Whereas a gorilla that eats a lot of plant material has this great big long convoluted cecum. That's where the fermentation of the plant material occurs in the gorillas. Humans don't have that. We have a much longer, much more highly developed, much more voluminous small intestine, which is designed, by the way, to absorb protein and fat. It can also absorb simple sugars, sure, but not plant material.
Correct.
In fact, our large intestine to small intestine size volume ratio is exactly inverse to what you would expect in a largely herbivorous animal, say a gorilla. So we go with that. And then people say, oh, yes, but sharp, pointy teeth, though. And I'm like, well, what was the negative selection pressure that would cause our teeth to need to change shape from what they were?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, I've looked at a number of cave paintings, Serge, and I have never seen a cave painting of human beings diving at woolly mammoths with their mouths open to try and take them down that way.
Yeah.
I think you'll find they've all got sharp, pointy sticks.
Yeah.
Sharp, pointy sticks is how human beings have opposable thumbs. We can make tools. We have a large brain. We can strategize. We can communicate with one another, and we can have a plan to take down the mammoth. We don't need sharp, pointy teeth like this. So why would we have them? So anyway, yes, the answer is those are our genes that are selected for. That is how we have behaved as a species for the best part of 4 million years. We are absolutely obligate hypercarnivores. Yeah. We are absolutely apex predators. We are not frugivores. Our ancestors were. Yes, we're not.
Yeah.
So there's that one.
So it's really interesting to me that you can literally live and survive for decades just by eating animal protein and fats, but you cannot really do that just by eating plant-based diet. I mean, all those people over time get deficient and get sick. And one of the best work that I really like to read, it's the work of Weston Price, right? Dr. Price. His book was amazing. And he did talk about one small population, I believe he was in India, and those people were about 99.9% vegan, and they will actually survive up to about 35, 40 years old. They would not live longer than 40 years old. So another good point is really that transgenerational veganism, you don't see that. You don't see those societies out there that live just out of plant-based. They all need animal sources.
Absolutely. I mean, a vegan diet is deficient, absolutely demonstrably, in vitamin B12. You cannot derive vitamin B12 from animal-based nutrition. So that's the end of the discussion there. If nitrogen 14, 15 testing is not enough, then you just go B12 though. Finished. If that's still not enough, then you can say, well, while we're at it, you're short on fat in a vegan diet. You're short on bioavailable, usable, whole, high-quality protein, which you would get from animal sources. That's deficient in a vegan diet. You're short on all the fat-soluble vitamins in their bioavailable form. For example, A, D, E, K. You're probably short on cholesterol while you're there. You're short on calcium. You're short on all sorts of things, including the vegan diet, which is largely carbohydrate based in terms of the nutrition that is available such that it is on that diet. What a lot of people don't understand is that the transporter that is required to get vitamin C out of your blood and into the cells where it needs to do its thing, that transporter is a transporter which is known as GLUT4.
Yeah.
Which will be very familiar to most people who know anything about physiology, because they'll go, oh, well, that's the one that transports glucose. Yes, the same one. So if you've got a bunch of glucose in your system, in your blood, trying to get into cells, and it has to compete with vitamin C, well, actually what happens is it completely overwhelms the vitamin C. It pushes vitamin C out. So eating a diet rich in carbohydrates actually increases the need for you to have vitamin C many fold, actually, so that any vitamin C can get into your cells at all. Because, of course, the first thing that the vegans will say is, oh, yes, but your carnivore diet is short on vitamin C. Well, no, it isn't, because we're not having to fight against glucose. That the range of vitamin C that you actually need to prevent scurvy is in the nanograms per deciliter range in the blood. Nanograms.
Yeah.
So there is plenty of vitamin C actually in the meat. So there we go. That one takes care of that as well. It's really fascinating when you dive into the stuff, Serge. It really is.
It is. And that will explain actually why I've seen some vegan who are vitamin C deficient, which doesn't make sense, because they get so much vitamin C from the diet, right? You would believe, but it doesn't get into the cells. And one of the counter argument of what you just said is the blue zones. A lot of people bring this topic to me. Listen, look at the blue zone, the seven-day Adventists from California, for example. They're vegan. They don't eat animal protein. They live to 100, 105, 110 years old. How can you reconcile these?
Right. There's a couple of things on blue zones that people need to understand. Number one, there are 5 blue zones around the world. 4 out of 5 do not have anything like reliable official record keeping, birth certificates, death certificates, that kind of stuff. 4 out of those 5 are estimates, not actual, here is the birth certificate, here is the death certificate.
I see. Good point. Okay.
The one that does have birth certificates and death certificates is the Loma Lindens, the Californian population of Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that we need to understand about the blue zones is that this is not a controlled population living in a laboratory. There are confounders, there are covariates, there are things that contribute to the either actual or estimated longevity of these populations. Some of those covariates are, for example, I'll give you the one they always go to first, which is the Okinawans in Japan.
Yes.
I'll say Okinawans, though, that's the first one, Well,
Yeah.
It turns out that Okinawans consume, on average, 15% fewer calories per day than mainland Japanese.
Wow.
So you consume fewer calories chronically for a lifetime. That means every cell in your body lives more slowly, divides more slowly. That means your cell lines die out more slowly. That means you have a longer life generally. They haven't proved that absolutely in human beings, but they absolutely have an rodent model in the labs with mice. You feed a mouse less, it lives longer. No reason to really believe it's not true for a human being as well. So that might well invalidate the assertion about the diet. Secondly, Okinawans, for example, I'll tell you what their diet was traditionally made up of before the Great War. Pork. Pigs.
Interesting.
Pigs are not vegetables, Serge, are they?
No, they're not, right?
No. Pigs, porcine, yeah, they are very much four-legged animals that run around and snuffle and do that kind of stuff. Anyway, what happened
during they were healthy. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. During the Great War, what actually happened was, as a result of the hostilities, the population of pigs on the island of Okinawa was decimated.
I see.
So as a response to that, the Okinawans went to their secondary food source, which was sweet potatoes, and they increased their uptake of sweet potatoes, basically. So for the last 100 years or so, Okinawans have subsisted more on sweet potato and less on meat. They're not vegans, by the way.
Yeah.
Neither are the Loma Lindens in California, the Seventh-day Adventists. They're not vegans either. In fact, none of the blue zone populations are vegan. All of them have a significant amount of meat and fat in their diet.
But a lot of people get confused because they believe they're really low animal protein diet.
Not true.
Yeah.
That's a fallacy. That's propaganda put together by the veganized, basically. I call them vagoons.
Okay.
just for a bit of fun. Yeah. No, blue zones though doesn't work as an argument. The other thing is that blue zone populations are generally either socially or indeed geographically separated from humanity at large, which is a good thing. Yeah. They have large amounts of social cohesion, which is a known covariate with longer lives. People feel connected to each other. They have strong communities. They have purpose, all of that. And the other thing that blue zone people are is they are much, much more physically active. They do much more manual labor. Yeah. There is a strong correlation, a negative correlation between affluence, money, and lifespan. The wealthier a population is in general, the shorter those people actually live in general, because of the effects, I guess, of modern lifestyles on people's health. So these people are largely doing what they traditionally did. They work hard, they're active, they sleep well, they don't have blue screens that they're looking at all the time, they don't have computers, they don't have phones generally, they eat fewer calories. All of these things add up to, it's no surprise these people live longer, actually, and it's nothing whatsoever to do with not eating meat, because they do.
They do, and you have a good point here, because getting to optimum health is just not nutrition. I think nutrition is really foundational, but there's a lot more factors that we need to do in order to stay and be healthy. And one of the interesting facts of the Seventh-day Adventists and the Blue Zone is the Mormons who live in California, close to the Seventh-day Adventists. They have similar system beliefs, similar lifestyles, but they eat a lot of red meat, and they are healthy, and they live as long as the Seventh-day Adventists. Right, that is another argument.
It's really interesting, Serge, that you mentioned that one, because a lot of people sort of listen to what I've got to say and they think, oh, you're just saying stuff because you want to, and you just, you're not backing this stuff up and all that. I'll give you an example of some of the propaganda that goes on here in nutrition. There's a study which is known, it's a very, very famous study, and it's known worldwide, and it's the Seventh-day Adventist Health Study. What they did is they prospectively followed a population of Seventh-day Adventists in various states, mainly in California, mainly the Loma Lindens, but others as well in the States, for a number of years. It was between 8 and 14 years of follow-up.
Okay.
For a population of Seventh-day Adventists. And what they did is they had 4 quartiles for red meat intake. So first quartile, second, third, and fourth. Okay. And they had another control population of Seventh-day Adventists, which they called the 0th quartile. And these were the people that ate no red meat at all. The Seventh-day Adventist faith pushes, if you like, an idea that red meat should be avoided. And so not all Seventh-day Adventists do abstain from meat, but a large number do. So they had this large control population that had no red meat in their diet at all. And then you've got the first quartile of those that did, the second, third, and fourth. And they split those up into those bins and said, right, let's look at these people over between 8 and 14 years, and let's track the mortality from all causes in these people over that time frame. And while we're at it, let's split that mortality up into heart disease, cancer, etc.
Yeah.
Right? And then what they did is they did this epidemiological study, and they did all these fancy statistics that we statisticians like to do, including they did a thing called adjusting the data.
Yeah.
Whenever you see that, actually, by the way, in science, adjusting the data, what you can read is making it up. What a scientist does is plans an observation under scientific discipline, makes the observation, and then reports what was observed. What epidemiologists do is they go, let's never mind the discipline, never mind controls. Let's just collect a whole bunch of observations and then ignore the observations we've made and adjust them to say what they probably would have said had we bothered to do some control in the first place based on some guesswork.
Yeah.
Awesome. So anyway, what the Seventh-day Adventist study suggested was that your risk of dying from any cause whatsoever, be that cancer, heart attack, being run down by a bus or struck by lightning, whatever, in the 0th population, that was the control population, so their relative risk of mortality was 1 with itself.
Okay. Yeah.
The first quartile of meat, the risk went up, they said. The second quartile, it went up again. The third quartile, it went up again. And in the fourth quartile, the risk was absolutely the highest. And it was something like 30% higher relatively than eating no meat at all. Except I'm a statistician, Serge, and I like to actually look at the numbers and see whether or not what they're claiming is borne out by the statistics. It turns out that the incidence of mortality from all causes was lowest per 1,000 people in the people who ate the most meat. The next one up was the third quartile, then the second, then the first, and the mortality was absolutely highest in those that didn't eat any meat. So the adjustment was used to fabricate a result 180 degrees out of phase with reality of what was actually observed in the population. And then they published the study saying, look, if you eat meat, you're more likely to die, when actually that's not what they found. They found the exact opposite was true. They did the same thing for heart disease and for cancer, and they did the same thing in both those cases too, saying, yes, more meat, more heart disease, and more cancer. The exact opposite was what was observed. The most cancer and the most heart attacks were in the people who ate no meat. Goodness.
That's really, really interesting. And it reminds me of the China study, actually. I'm sure you read the China study, and we know now that Dr. Campbell manipulated some data, because we know that the Chinese who ate more meat actually has less cancer incidence. So it's first, I think this is where the confusion comes in when it comes to the field of nutrition science, is they tend to use statistics, but it's mostly manipulations to me. Because if you have a preconception that veganism is better, you're going to have the results that veganism is better.
Yeah, exactly. Campbell is a vegan, by the way.
Yeah, good point. This
The
is so
author of the
fascinating.
China study.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one of the worst study ever that I read. It's
Yep.
so bad.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I would like to change that bit, Gay, and talk about a video that came out last week, I believe, or the week before. You may have seen it on vitamin A. This is another argument that people are using. If you overdose on vitamin A, it's toxic. You have a lot of issues that you may have. That was actually recorded by a Dr. Nanjane from Canada, and his argument is you should never eat a vitamin A foods like liver, for example, or eggs or fats. So I know there's different members in this vitamin A family, the beta carotene, the retinic acid, retinol, and all those different things. So can you help us a little bit understanding the risk, if there's a risk to eat liver, for example?
Right. Okay. So what we need to do when we're looking at any such things where we're going to assert a cause and effect outcome in a population. So if I'm going to say, Serge, those people that eat a lot of liver, they're more likely to get vitamin A toxicity issues. What I'm required to do, if I'm going to make that assertion, is I'm required to back that up, because that's a positive claim.
Yes.
So what I'm going to need to be able to show is a clear positive association between the consumption of liver and vitamin A toxicity. We can talk about theoretical, this is the mechanism by which toxicity might occur until the cows come home, if you like.
Yeah.
But before we go there, let's see if this is actually a problem in the real world. Is this actually happening to people?
Yes.
So to save people a bunch of time on looking for a bunch of records on people that have got vitamin A toxicity because they've been eating liver.
Yeah.
End of discussion. It's not a problem. Change my mind. Show me some data that would suggest that vitamin A toxicity is a problem in people who've been eating liver. I myself am largely a carnivore, but I don't eat liver. And it's not because I'm worried about vitamin A. It's because I don't like liver, and there's no need to eat liver.
Yeah.
All the nutrient you need as a human being, you will find in the muscle meat of ruminant animals. All of it.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of people running around saying, oh, no, you must eat nose to tail, to which I usually say, well, how did the last nose you ate taste? How was that for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's some doctors who claim that you need to eat organ meats. I mean, you don't have to. It's a good sources of vitamins and minerals. It can be part of a good diet, but there's no risk. So how did we believe that vitamin A is toxic? Actually, there's a lot of studies showing that vitamin A deficiency can be deadly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, vitamin A is one of those fat solubles that we were talking about earlier that vegans are always going to be short of. Yeah. But also many people who are not vegans are still short of vitamin A because they don't get enough in, or indeed because they are avoiding fat.
Yeah.
Basically, because it is fat soluble, it comes with fat. And because for 80 years or so now we've been told to avoid fat, which is complete fallacy. We don't need to avoid fat at all. In fact, you are absolutely designed by 4 million years of positive selection to gain the vast majority of your energy from fat, animal fat, actually.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, in the last 80 years, we've decided we know better than Mother Nature herself. We've put on white coats, hung stethoscopes around our necks and said, no, fats will kill you and we must avoid those at all costs. And instead, you should eat these healthy whole grains, which are going to destroy your enteric function, fill you up with toxins, cause you to have obesity and diabetes and be carcinogenic and all of that kind of stuff. No, it's all money driven, sir. There's nothing to do with science here at all.
No.
Vitamin A, if there is genuinely too much vitamin A in someone's system, it's excreted.
How beautiful that is, right? The body knows how to normalize its own vitamin levels.
Anyone would think, Serge, that the human body is informed by a series of genes that have survived 4,000 million years of evolution and are actually pretty good at managing things if we allow it to do so by feeding it a species-appropriate, species-specific diet.
Yeah. Exactly right. And it reminds me of the work again of Dr. Price. I remember in his book, he talked about the Eskimos. I think he was one of the last people actually who ate a 100% carnivore diet, animal fat, animal protein, and they were the strongest, the healthiest people in the 30s and 40s. So you can live out of just being carnivore. There's no risk at all.
No. I mean, the things that people will throw at people who say, oh, I'm just eating animal products and nothing else, is they'll go, oh, well, cholesterol, though, that'll give you heart disease. And they'll go, saturated fat, that'll give you heart disease as well. Oh, and by the way, meat will give you cancer. So those are the three things. Yes. Cholesterol, heart disease, saturated fat, heart disease, and red meat, cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me answer those three questions just quickly, and then we can get to whatever other topics. Number one, rubbish. Number two, rubbish. And number three, absolute rubbish. There is no indication that saturated fat causes heart disease. In fact, the top 5 meta-analyses available on this topic, available anywhere in the literature, all 5 are in agreement, and all 5 say saturated fat is not a concern for heart disease or cancer or obesity or diabetes or anything else. Actually, they all exonerate saturated fat completely and absolutely. So relax on that one. Because again, we've got all this theoretical, this is how it's going to cause a problem. But let's go back to the population studies and say, is this borne out in the population? The answer is no. Cholesterol and heart disease, absolute nonsense. I won't cover the reason for that now because it's quite long-winded. But if you look at my main channel, the Nutrition Science Watchdog channel, there's a playlist on that channel that I've put together over the last 3 years, which has something like 40 videos in that playlist now, where I really cover the science behind the cholesterol con, the cholesterol ideology that Big Pharma basically have put together over the last 80 years. And I really follow that rabbit hole to the absolute bottom over there on my channel. So I would suggest people go and look at that. In short, for a too long didn't watch version, there is no science whatsoever underpinning an idea that cholesterol is causal in heart disease in any way, shape, or form. It simply is not. No.
Yeah.
And then you get to red meat and cancer. Well, again, let's look for the association in the population to see whether it really is a problem. Once again, the answer is no. Sure.
Yeah, there's no evidence at all.
Then there's one more thing. There's one more thing that vegans will throw at us as well, which is also easily answered. Fiber, though. That's what they'll say. Where do you get your fiber from? You can't have good gut function without fiber, they'll say.
Yes.
Also wrong. Sorry about that. There is actually only one decent, relatively well-controlled, relatively well-followed-up study available on this topic anywhere in the literature. One. It had a sample size of 63.
Wow.
These were 63 individuals that presented with idiopathic constipation at the outset.
I see.
Okay, so these are all people that have constipation at the outset of the study.
Yeah.
They're all people with constipation with no clear reason, no clear etiology that the physicians could determine using a colonoscopy. So they stick a camera up there, have a look around. Is there a reason that we can see for the constipation? No. Okay, you're in the study. Great. Then what they did is they counseled all 63 people. They said, here's what we want you to do. We want you to remove all fiber, all vestige of fiber from your diet, the lot. Get rid of the lot. Get it gone. And keep it gone. Actually, consume no fiber. And then what they did is they followed these people up periodically. And the last follow-up they did was 1 year after the counseling to remove all fiber. And then what they did is they had their population, which they then split into three populations. Those who were completely adherent and were able to remove fiber and keep it gone for a year.
Yeah.
Those who were able to reduce their fiber somewhat, and those who were not able, those who just couldn't get with it, just couldn't do it for whatever reason, and they still had a high fiber diet at the end after a year.
Yeah.
And what you find is that after a year, the people that had the high fiber diet, those that were in that sub cohort of those 63, every single one of those individuals still had constipation. Every single one of those people had trouble opening their bowels. Every single one of those people had bloating. In the people who reduced their fiber intake somewhat, those three symptoms were, funnily enough, reduced somewhat.
Yeah.
In a sort of almost dose-response relationship. The people that were adherent, the people that removed all the fiber from their diet, 0% of those people had constipation, 0% of them had trouble opening their bowels, and 0% of them had bloating anymore. In other words, they had complete 100% remission from bowel dysfunction by removing the cause of it, apparently, which seems to have been fiber. Whoops.
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting study, actually. And the 30 grams of fiber a day that they recommend has no scientific basis. And I can speak for myself is when I changed my diet to a carnivore, my gut has never felt as good as ever. No bloating, no gas, things are moving good. So the fiber thing is, to me, it's another big myth and confusion. So thank you for bringing it up. Which,
no worries.
It's bad. It's really bad. Which gets me to my next point is the other side of the coin of veganism or carnivore debate is the plant toxins. So plants have toxins, the pesticides, right? The oxalates, the lectins, the phytic acid. Do you recommend vegetables at all?
No, under no circumstances. Fruit, vegetables, plant material of any kind, be that processed or whole, for me is a no-no. The appropriate species-specific diet. You got to understand, human beings have evolved in a specific niche.
Yes.
And that niche is obligate hypercarnivore. That niche is apex predator. That is how we should eat. Meat and animal fat. Meat and animal fat and more meat and animal fat. I keep my plant intake as low as I can possibly keep it.
So what's your typical diet then?
So I will eat once a day, generally in the middle of the afternoon, around about 3 or 4 p.m., certainly before it gets dark. The meal will be a serving of, let's say it's beef, so it'll be a beef steak, or it might be pork ribs, or it might be, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's meat, basically. And it's worked out so that I'm consuming about 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of my body mass, my lean body mass. And to do that, basically, you multiply the weight of the meat or the weight of the protein that you want, and you multiply that by 4 to get the weight of meat that you should eat to get that much protein, basically, because meat is 3/4 water.
True.
So I end up eating something like just under a pound of meat on a daily basis with associated fat. Often I'll add additional fat in the form of butter.
Okay.
Or extra lard or extra tallow or whatever is appropriate to that particular meal. That is the meal. So it's flesh and fat.
Okay. And you eat once a day. So are you saying that you are a fan of fasting?
I do. I have used fasting in the past for various indications. I have used it with my clients, with my patients, when it is indicated. I think fasting is something that people have normally naturally done throughout our evolution. Absolutely. I do always suggest to people, by way of for a safety caveat, that they should be locked in with a knowledgeable and qualified professional like myself or like yourself or someone like that, Serge, who can help those people. You just need to be, keep a count of fingers and toes, really, make sure everything's going the way it should and that nothing's going badly wrong. For me, fasting, when you use the term fast, that refers to no intake of food for 72 hours or more. That's when a fast starts for me.
Okay.
Any amount of time underneath that, so 48 hour, what they'll call a 48-hour fast, that's not a fast. That's just not eating for 2 days. The reason I say 72 hours is where a fast starts is because that's when your body starts to actually kick into gear and do those things that it does when it's fasting, i.e. Autophagy, immune system resets, those kind of things. They all kick in around about 72 hours. So 48 hours is just not eating. Eating once a day is just eating once a day. Eating twice a day is just eating twice a day. Intermittent fasting, they'll call it. It's not fasting. Fasting starts at 72 hours. Okay, so that's just my bugbear on that one. And yes, I'm a fan. I've used it. I'm not a fan of characters like the snake diet guy who is not remotely trained, not remotely competent to be giving advice, gung-ho, and his particular style is what it is. I mean, I'm not bagging him for swearing a lot and all of that, because I do that on my channel too, to be fair. What I'm having a crack at that guy for is because he's completely untrained, he's not competent, and he's telling people to go and do something that could potentially be very dangerous. And I think he shouldn't be doing that. At some point, it'll come and bite him.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are saying things. So let's change gear a little bit and talk about one of the most exciting field, I believe, in the anti-aging science. It's stem cells. I studied stem cells for 6-7 years at Harvard Medical School. I'm really excited about this field, but let's try to tie everything together, stem cells and nutrition. So what can you tell us about stem cells? What are stem cells? And what can we do to support your stem cells with nutrition and supplementation?
Got it. Okay. So my experience with stem cells, what I've been talking about with stem cells is a particular kind of stem cells. There are two, if you like, broad categories of stem cells. There are what's called embryonic stem cells, which we've all heard of, and there is a lot of ethical problems with the use of embryonic stem cells, both in research and in medicine, etc. Where do we get embryonic stem cells from? Well, they come from aborted fetuses, basically. That's where we get it from. Those are not the stem cells I'm talking about at all. I have no interest in those stem cells professionally. I have no research experience with those kind of stem cells personally. That's not my area at all. The stem cells I'm talking about is what's called adult stem cells. Now, these are a population of stem cells that exist in my body and in your body and in everybody's body. And they are there at the time of your birth, and they will still be there at the time of your death, actually, all things being equal. These are blank cells. They contain all your DNA, all the instructions to make up you. They are basically immortal cell lines. These particular cells will live forever, as long as you live, basically, unlike a red blood cell, which has a lifespan and dies, unlike a heart cell, which has a lifespan and dies. Every other adult cell in your body that is differentiated, a liver cell, a toenail cell, a hair follicle cell, whatever, these things die and they need to be replaced. The way they are replaced is with adult stem cells. Your stem cell population, the blank cells, which are stored in various areas in your body. There is a population of adult stem cells in your bone marrow. There's another population in the dermis under your skin, et cetera, et cetera. And when your stem cell tissues, like your bone marrow or the dermis in your skin, when it receives a chemical message saying we need to release some stem cells, then the stem cells are released. They travel in the blood and they find the tissues that are in need of renewal and repair. They bind to those tissues. They differentiate into brand new adult cells of that kind, and they replace the damaged cell, which is then dissolved, undergoes autophagy, and the components of that are either recycled or excreted, as the case may be. It's the normal natural process of repair and renewal of your tissues in your body. And my first exposure, I guess, to this area was now 11 years ago, when I went for a standard eye health check, a standard vision check for some new prescriptive lenses. And the optometrist said, "Oh, no, don't really like what I'm seeing here. I'm going to send you to a specialist. We'll get this looked at," sort of thing. So I duly waited out the time you have to wait to see a specialist, of course. And I finally got in there, and the specialist went, had a look and confirmed it, took some photos. Yep, absolutely. He said to me, "You have a very advanced case of age-related macular degeneration," he said. And it was like, well, hang on, you're supposed to be in your 70s when that occurs, aren't you? And I was in my 30s at the time. And he said, "Yeah, I've never seen a case this advanced in a man of your age. This is crazy." And I said, "Great, what are we going to do?" And he said, "Well, there's nothing we can do, actually. Don't smoke," he said. "Eat a healthy, balanced diet," he said. "Avoid all that saturated fat, animal protein, and cholesterol," he said. "Don't let blue light into your eyes," he said. "Good luck. And by the way, in about 5 to 7 years from now, you will be legally blind," he said. "Sorry, $200, thanks," is what he said. So that wasn't really the answer I was looking for. He did say, "Well, look, there's some experimental stuff with stem cells. We can inject some stem cells into your eyes, isn't it a hypodermic needle into your eyes?" And I said, "No, thanks. Don't think we'll be doing that." And it was about that time that I came across a company that I'm now joint ventured with, who were producing a supplement which causes my bone marrow to increase the rate at which it releases my adult stem cells, thus improving the number of stem cells available in my bloodstream to repair tissues in need of repair, basically.
Yeah.
So I've been taking that product now for 11 years.
Wow.
And 6 years ago, I should have been legally blind, according to the best eye specialist in New Zealand, where I live, who said, not maybe, he said, "You will go blind, and it will be about 5 years from now." Well, my eyesight is actually now better than it was 11 years ago. My prescription is less. I see better than I did. That's just one example of many health benefits that I'm not allowed to claim are caused by this product, because the FDA won't allow it, actually. The FDA says, no, you can't make therapeutic claims. All we can say is this product does what it says it does, and that is it causes your bone marrow to release more adult stem cells than you otherwise would.
So can you
Obviously,
tell us
if you've got more circulating stem cells, sorry, go on.
Can you tell us a little bit about this product?
Absolutely. There it is. It's called Stem Enhance Ultra. It's put together by a company called Cerule. What I can do is provide you with a direct link to my shopfront, actually. I'm joint ventured with them. I unashamedly market this product on my channel and elsewhere. And the reason, because I'm not allowed to claim it has, but I believe, it is my personal belief that it has had a meaningful impact on my life, as just described.
Yeah.
It is coincident with my my vision having been repaired from a really quite poor state. And there are tens of thousands of people around the world who consume this product on a daily basis, some of them having done so for up to 18 years.
Wow.
and they all sing the praises of this stuff from the rooftops, basically. Yeah, it's a miraculous product, really. It's incredible that it's not better known. I don't really get why it isn't better known, but nonetheless, that's great because that gives me an opportunity for a side income, because I can educate people on the existence of this product. It says, look, you have this system of stem cells. It's there from the time that you're born, and it'll be there when you die. One of the reasons that we die, actually, though, is that also encoded for in your genes is a progressive decline in your ability to release your stem cells. Not that you're running out of stem cells. You can never, ever run out of these things. Every time you release one, a new one is produced to fill the void where the one that's been released. So inexhaustible supply. Stem cells will live forever. They never run out. You can't run out. That's fine. But what happens is your body is programmed to make it harder and harder for you to actually get them released into your bloodstream. So your ability to renew and repair your tissues goes down and down and down. So your tissues fall to bits and age, you become decrepit and you die. It's not the only reason you die, but it's one of them. So this is literally a product that really can turn back the clock, because it can turn your ability to release your stem cells back and make it more like what it was when you were an 18-year-old kid.
Fascinating.
Now, it's an incredible thing. And that's not where the story ends, Serge, either. The other thing you need to understand is that when an adult stem cell differentiates into a new heart cell or a new toenail cell or a new eyeball cell or whatever, that brand new cell has a full length telomere.
That's
Bingo.
a really good point. Yes. Yeah.
Anti-aging. Okay. For those that don't understand what I just said, every time an adult cell line, a heart cell, a toenail cell, whatever, every time they divide into two, there's a little bit of DNA on the end of the chromosomes called a telomere. It's like the plastic thing that goes around a shoelace.
Yeah.
And every time the cell divides into two, that telomere gets shorter, shorter, shorter. It's how the cell line is programmed to have a certain lifespan and then dies off and needs replacing. Okay. When that telomere gets to a certain critically short length, it can no longer hold the chromosomes together. They fray. They fall to bits. The cell line dies. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you replace your cell with a new adult stem cell, the new cell has a full length telomere. So its biological age is now 0 and not whatever age you are. So in my case, 49. So I can replace my 49-year-old heart cells. Well, they're not actually, because heart cells are replaced more regularly than that. But the concept is you can replace a cell that is significantly aged with one that is not aged. So there's another anti-aging property of adult stem cells. And the final thing I would like to say about stem cells, really, adult stem cells, that is, not only are they capable of differentiating into a brand new cell of whatever kind is required, except sperm and eggs. They can't become sperm and eggs. Adult stem cells can also exude tens of thousands of exosomes every hour.
Yes.
In those exosomes are RNA messages, DNA messages, partial proteins, even whole proteins, actually, which can send various messages from tissue to tissue, including if you have chronic systemic inflammation, the adult stem cell can send out anti-inflammatory messages to quash that, calm it down. If the adult stem cell encounters cancerous tissues, tumor tissues, it can send messages to those tissues halting their replication and encouraging their apoptosis, their cell destruction. In other words, anti-cancer, for example. So adult stem cells, absolutely an incredible toolkit.
Yeah.
And all you need to do to get them up and running is to get hold of some of this crazy stuff, which you can get by clicking the link that Serge will put underneath this video for us, basically, and it will just take you straight to the shop front.
Awesome. It's really amazing to me that the human body has all those different ways to repair itself and heal itself. Listen, Mr. Bart, our time is up together. So as a final note, so what can you tell someone who's dealing with chronic health issues? What would be the first thing or the main thing that you will recommend to them?
Okay. Number one, a carnivorous diet consisting of the flesh and fat of animals, no plant material of any kind, if you can possibly manage that. And if you can't manage that, get as close as you possibly can. Plants are not your friends. Plants will slowly poison and kill you. Get rid of plants out of your diet. You are not designed to eat plants. Number two, get some stem cell support. Get that happening on a daily basis. Number three, get yourself electrically grounded to the earth as often as possible for as long as you possibly can. There you go.
Really, really, really good point. Really good point. Thank you for that. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Take some time in your busy schedule to be with us today. So thank you to y'all to watching us. God bless you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.